Alrighty, guys. Hi. Welcome to episode 4. Today, I decided to bring on a special and lovely and beautiful guest. I don't know if you can tell, we look exactly alike because she is my grandma. And she is here to. Whoa, sorry, guys. I kicked the camera. She is here to spread some amazing wisdom for us today and to really just talk to us today. Do you want to say something? Go ahead. You can introduce yourself, say who you
Well,
are.
my name is Cheryl Perkins. I am Natalia's grandmother, and I am excited about being on today. And so I'm open to whatever it is that she wants to ask me.
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about a lot of good things today. We don't exactly know what we're going to be talking about yet, but we're going to be talking about a lot of good things today. And so to start off this video, like we normally do, I just want to start off by having us do our normal "How are you?" But before we do that, I know one big glaring difference is obviously my hair. My hair is different. Okay, I look a little different. Okay, I'm slaying. I'm being me. Doing my thing. So yeah, this is the new hairstyle. I'm live laughing and loving it. So there's that. But also, we're gonna go back to doing our "How are you?" So remember, when we do our "How are you?" we're gonna make sure that we are really asking questions about like how we're actually doing. I know that it's really easy in this day and age to kind of just say I'm okay or I'm fine and like not really answer the question. So let's make sure that we're actually doing our "How are you?" and then we're actually asking how we're doing. And we're actually talking about maybe some goals that we've accomplished in the past week or maybe some things that we're proud of. I know in the holiday season it's really easy to kind of get caught up in being with family and having a break, and that's okay if you're just having your little break. That's perfectly fine, but make sure that we're just talking about how we're doing and what we're doing with our lives and how we're doing in our lives. And we will come back in a little bit. Thank you. Bye. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. I really hope that you benefited from that time and you really were able to just either journal or talk to people around you about how you're doing. But to bring you back in and to reel you back in, we are going to talk a lot about our goals and a lot about mission oriented living. And so, the perfect person to talk about this is my grandmother. Would you like to tell the viewers a little bit about what you do, who you are, and what you stand for, and your mission in life?
Currently, I am Dr. Cheryl Perkins. I have a PhD, uh, which was one of my passions, always has been. But what I do with that, I lead an organization. It is actually two, and I do some freelance writing, but I deal with um, pastoring people. I have a dance and drama team because I feel like the arts are so important to use as vehicles of training and uh, education. I'm also, I have a women's organization, women's empowerment, because I think it's really important that we know who we are and where we fit, and that we really can accomplish everything inside of us. I think we all have in our DNA the gifts, the talents, the abilities to accomplish great things, but it's important for us to mine those gifts as treasures because they really are treasures. So I hope as you are positioning yourself that you can think about, who am I really? What am I really passionate about? I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about seeing lives change, people being educated, people growing in who they are. So that's my heart's passion.
And we've
Mm.
talked a lot about that on the show. We talked a lot about how our passions in our life are really the key to living. Because I mean, in a lot of ways, like in past episodes, I've talked a lot about how like honing in on your passions and doing what you're passionate about is really where it brings us joy, and really is, like I said, the key to living. So, what made you realize that your passion, that you had a passion for people? Because I know earlier in other episodes, I've talked about how I found my passion for children through working with kids. So, how did you find your passion for people and pastoring people?
Well, honestly, even as a, a child, I would look at families and I would see their struggles and I would think there's got to be things to help them live a better life. I was fortunate. I had a mom and a dad that provided an atmosphere for me to grow in love, to feel love. But I would often look around me and say, you know what? Others don't have what I have. And I was always, even as a child, saying, what can we do? You know, there was a man, a family next door, and on the weekend, the father would become very abusive. There was a house full of children, and I used to stand on my porch. You know, there was a time people had these porches, and I would stand on my porch and I would look at the drama and I would think, what is going on in their lives that would cause such pain and brokenness? So that's always been my heart. Even when I would go to school, I was always trying to figure out what I could do for my classmates. So, however, 40 years of my work experience was information technology. And I would tell myself, you know what? I'm helping because I'm creating these software systems to help employees do their job better. And yes, I was, but I was always on my off time serving in the community, serving in various organizations, um, trying to fulfill the need that I had to empower people to live their best lives.
So, if you could think of like any advice to give my generation and younger generations, especially when it comes to like following their passions, because you're a very highly educated person, right? I mean, you've pretty
Yeah,
much received the highest degree that you can receive, right?
right.
So like when you're talking about from the avenues of education, because I think that there's a huge trend in my generation not really trusting the education system or not really wanting to be a part of the education system because of the ability to instantly go into a career without a degree, or having just your diploma and being able to make money, right? So, from the standpoint of education, um, how would you instruct young people to get into education as well as follow their passions through education?
You know, I hear two things. One, I do think we come with gifts and talents that as we mine them, as we cultivate them, there's a place for everyone. If you're if you're living, there's a place for you. There's a reason you're living in this moment. We don't always find that place. So my encouragement is those things that are in your heart, know that you can accomplish them. But it may take strategy. You may have to come up with goals, strategic plans of how you want to move from where you are to what it is that's inside of you, because I think we always have these dreams inside of us. Know that you can do it. If it's in you, you can do it. What part does education play? Well, I believe in formal education. I believe that that gives a systematic framework for you to develop your thought processes. Even if you don't agree with what's being taught, you have an opportunity to think through why you disagree. That builds and cultivates your skills as well. The other thing to remember, when we are educated, it's more than just about our career, it's about cultivating all that we are, and being able to see the multifaceted aspects of human existence. One of the things I teach, I'm an adjunct professor, I teach humanities, and humanities deals with all of the arts, drama, dance, literature, and looking at those things through the lens of cultures and history. What you will find is a richness that will begin to open you up and help you see possibilities. I deal often with at risk communities who have not had an opportunity to step back and say, this is what I want to be when I grow up, because they were too busy trying to figure out how to make it. But I think, so what I encourage them to do is step back and say, okay, you can do it and become it, but let's deal with a strategy. But I often do things. I just recently took my dance and drama team to the art museum where I live locally. Not because every person, because it's young adults and children, not that every person is going to be an artist, but there's something about learning new things that causes your mind to just open up and explode. And I think that's the importance of education.
Yeah, and I agree. I think a major point that you said was ultimately making your dreams a reality by taking certain steps. And so that is a really key component in having dreams is, understanding that having dreams is perfectly okay and everyone has dreams. I think that if you're not dreaming, then you're not living, because at a certain point of time, like, you're going to have things that you're going to want to do in this life, you have things that you're going to want to achieve, and the key thing about goals is making steps, realistic steps into your dreams. A great example is this podcast was a dream of mine, and it was something that I wanted to start because I wanted to help people, and that was the goal. So whenever you are looking at dreams and you are looking at trying to achieve your goals, um, in my experience, right, and even with this podcast, I think number one, knowing your intention, being intentional about what your goals are and why you're trying to achieve it. So, like for me, my intention is to reach a lot of people. My intention is to help people. My intention is to give people and kind of be that person to people and reach more people, right? But then also logical steps that I took. I started out by getting the equipment that I needed. I started out by looking up on Google, searching what I needed to start a podcast. Okay, I started looking up like different equipment that I would need. And then I started buying that equipment. I started saving up and buying that equipment. And then other people that I loved and cared about started investing in me as well. So I think that um, a major takeaway from that is, yeah, like, make sure that when you are achieving your goals, you're taking accurate steps. You want to make sure that you know your steps, because at the end of the day, you can only get somewhere by taking steps. You can't wake up one day and just have a podcast. You can't wake up one day and be a famous musician. You can't wake up one day and just, there are steps that you have to take. um so yeah, that's really deep.
You know, you said something that was absolutely beautiful, and I think that's so important for us to remember. And that is, it's going to be a process, and you have to invest in that process.
Mhm.
There may be times that you have to step back. Maybe you do have to reassess what you actually need to accomplish accomplish that goal. But the
Mhm.
key is never let go of the vision that's inside of you, even if you have to go through a strategy, even if, for example, I said I worked 35, 40 years in information technology. That wasn't a waste of time because it taught me some logical, practical things that balance. I have an extremely extroverted personality. Of if you were to evaluate your personality, um, I'm like a 12% of all of the people in the world. My personality type is. So I am extremely extroverted. I am intuitive. I do a lot of dynamic. I just love spontaneity, all of those things. So for me to be in an industry that reels me in, taught me balance, and it helped me even become more effective in my people skills because it gave me the opportunity, number one, to be empathetic and to kind of get a feel for what other people might have to go through. So it was very beneficial. And I always had in my mind that at some point in my life, I would transition from where I was into full time people helping, missionary type work. And I don't think you have to go to another country to have a mission. You just have to see a need and want to fill that need. So it's really important that you're true to your your vision, your plan, and enjoy the journey. We live in a world, and that's the beauty of your generation, because you really can build the life that you want.
Yes, I can.
It's you if you can dream it, you
Mhm.
can build it, but you will always have to educate yourself.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say a huge part of what you're saying is really learning. And I think a big thing about people that are trying to achieve their goals is that a lot of people aren't willing to learn. A lot of people aren't willing to research. A lot of people aren't willing to like just humble themselves for a second and realize, hey, I don't know everything. Because not like I think we live in a day and age where people always tell you Google is free, right? Google is free. And so then we ultimately put ourselves in a position where we want to know everything. I mean, I see that a lot. A big lesson that I learned this semester um, was the fact that Google was free and that there's no shame in not knowing everything. Because there were so many times, like when I would be in class and my professors would ask us, okay, you just use this word, right? What does that word mean? Textbook definition, what does that word mean? And a lot of people would just like look around and they would like look down at their computer or look down at their desk and like not say anything. And our professors would look at us and go, Google it. Google what that word means. Look it up right now. Google is free. And it's so funny because like I clearly remember a lot of my classmates at the time, like they found shame in it. Like they wanted to their automatic response wasn't to Google anything. Their automatic response was to try to like build these definitions. They're trying to build these definitions out of the back of their head based on like how they use the word in the sentence or like working their way back using context clues, like context clues almost in reverse, trying to like answer the question of like what this word meant, right? And ultimately every time we would realize, okay, that's not exactly what that word means. Or like even though you can use that word in that place, that's not the whole entirety of what that word means, right? So I say that to say that a lot of the times, whenever we are trying to achieve our goals, um, we don't really take a lot of time to just like sit down and like really like Google what we're trying to get into or really try to research what we're trying to get into. Like I said, I had to do research on how to start a podcast. I didn't just wake up one day and said, I'm going to do a podcast. No, like I didn't start getting into podcasting. I don't know. My first episode, I kind of talked about how I used to make fun of podcasters because I thought that podcasting was silly. Like I was like, who would want to sit there and listen to somebody else talk for like amount of time, right? And then I realized, and after I started getting into certain podcasters and listening to podcasts, and then also did research into equipment and things, I realized, okay, first of all, there is so much more to know about podcasting, because podcasting is quite literally what you make it. It's whatever you want it to be, right? And on top of that, there are so many things that like I did not know about podcasting, and I still don't know, and it's still going to be a learning process and a growing process with you all, right? We're still going to learn and grow together. um, don't get me wrong, I'm still learning and growing the same way this podcast is helping you learn and grow, right? So I don't know all the answers. I'm not some know-it-all, but that's the thing about a journey and a life journey. It's the fact that you have to first humble yourself enough to realize I don't know everything, and I'll probably never know everything. But um I am just 10%, 20%, 30%, 40% smarter because I'm willing to admit the fact that I don't know everything.
I think it's really interesting with the Google analogy because I teach Bible studies, and what I will say in the middle of and I'm very non-traditional. You probably figured that out by now. I believe in empowering people to live their richest and highest best through education, motivation, and inspiration, whatever it's going to take to empower you. But on my Thursday night Bible study, if I'm teaching something, I simply say, you use your phones for everything else. Google it.
Mhm.
Don't walk around using terminologies, having ideologies, and you don't have any idea
Mhm.
what you're talking about.
Or people following.
Or
A,
people
a lot of
following.
people will completely take what one person says and then just run with it.
No, don't. I don't believe in that at all. I believe that if you make a decision for your life, that you've invested enough time to understand the repercussions of the decision that you made. I
Mhm.
think that we have so many amazing tools available to us. When I taught humanities, I would tell the students again, you have in your hands all the history of humanity at your access. Use it for something that will empower your life to be richer and better. Um, find out the definitions of those words. Explore various avenues. And yes, you do have to be very careful because there's a lot of information out there. But what I have found, the more you're willing to explore and investigate, you begin to see the difference between what is real and what is just being presented, that needs some fact
Mhm.
checking in order for you to actually uh, receive it as knowledge. So just be very um, considerate.
You know, honestly, it's funny that you say that, because as you were saying that, the first thing I wanted to ask you was, how do you feel about AI and the rise in AI, and what and the capabilities of artificial intelligence?
I am, and if anyone has seen the movie Hidden Figures, I am like one generation younger than those women. So
Mhm.
I was in IT. And you know what? That's the beauty of my career, come to think of it. I was in IT when a computer would fill up this whole room, right? And we would have these reels of tape that would be the programs underneath underneath technology, a computer. uh, we learned they're on and off, yes or no's, all of that feeds in. I would have a big tray, would be my program, and I'd have to feed it into this machine. So um, I've seen the growth. I was one of the first people to ever use a laptop computer. Um, so I have this history. I find AI fascinating. I think that we have to remember that no matter how intelligent and how much capability are within a machine, we still made the machine.
Yeah.
And we still, someone somewhere is a guardian, I'll use that terminology, of what that machine can do. I know there's a lot, even I think the last Nobel, there's a young man from India. I think he's about 6, 7, 8. He's supposed to be one of the most brilliant people in this area. And one of the things that he says is that AI is going to take over the world. Well, I think that if AI takes over the world, somewhere there's someone that's that's allowed that program or process uh, to be put in place. I think what I see is AI is a great tool for us to advance in all areas. In other words, I did my dissertation. Every every dissertation you have what, about 50, 60 references, hundreds of pages, that you have, thousands of pages really, that you have to read. AI can help you
Mm-hmm.
pull your thoughts together, but you have to have a thought
Right.
for it to pull your
Right.
thoughts together.
Right.
If you don't have the thought, if you don't know what questions to ask, you're not going to get the correct answer. So it's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Use the tools that are there, but don't stop using the most important tool you have,
Right.
your mind.
And I think that's really funny because, like, a lot of my professors were talking. I think I had a social psychology class last semester that I was really, really interested in. And my professor was a crazy guy, but he was a cool guy too. And his key point about AI was that AI intelligence comes from human beings. AI is only as smart as we allow it to be, right? But then at the same time, I would have a lot of like my classmates, they would they would use AI to write their papers, right? And so I used to think it was really funny because I would be like, "Oh, that's terrible. Why would you ever use AI to write a paper?" But then I realized that there are so many good uses of AI outside of just writing papers. You can use AI to help you understand what a source is saying, and I've used AI so many times to do that. So for me, I'm a psychology major, and a huge part of the research that I have to do, because the main thing about college is research, is talking through ideas and understanding the world, right? And that's a huge part of psychology. And so a huge part of my research when I'm in school is reading these long research papers, that all kind of follow the same format, but the um, language used gets more and more difficult. The deeper that you get into the research, it's harder and harder to understand because they don't speak in layman's terms, right? They don't speak like you and I, right? They don't say, well, basically, so kind of what I did was like, they don't write like that, right? And so it's a lot harder because a lot of the times you don't really understand the terminology because they have to be very specific in what they say and how they say it. And so there were a lot of times where I would type in AI and I would say, simplify this. And I would just put in a paragraph and I would just let AI explain it to me. And then I'd be like, oh, okay. So what you're saying is that you found X, Y, and Z, or you found whatever, whatever, whatever. And so it was really funny because I would actually have to tell my classmates, no, this is the way that use AI to do your projects. You
Absolutely.
have to ultimately do the thinking by yourself. But AI can simplify the amount of time that you need to analyze and read and understand materials, right? Or it can help you organize your thoughts. For example, um, it can help you bring up key term or key things that you want to bring up in a paper. Like if you're talking about something and you say, I need an argument with 4 or 5 points. It can give you those 4 or 5 points, but then it's your job to then research to understand why that makes sense, or why those points apply to you, right? Or why that is for your argument or against your argument, things like that. So I really find it interesting when major institutions and universities are against the uses of AI, but then I think it's literally because students don't use AI properly.
I think that's the problem because, for example, because I have a PhD, the style of writing is developed in such a way that it is very, very complex. So if you're doing a research paper and you have to write 25 pages, um, you may still have 50 references to write those 25 pages if you've done due diligence. It's really important, though, even when you begin the process of your research, is that you have a foundational understanding of what it is you're going to write about. So, to ask AI an intelligent question and for it to give you um, feedback allows you to be strategic in what you write, what you research, and how you put it together. I think, just as you said, it's up to you not to allow AI to think for you.
Mhm,
And at the foundation of AI, someone is
mhm,
inputting data. There's If you're looking for a career area, there's a shortage of people being able to analyze and input data into the system so that this huge bank of information can be used. But it's really important that you think. It helps you build your thought processes. And it's like reading any article.
mhm,
If I read an article, that doesn't mean I print it up and give it to my professor. It means I read the article and I
mhm.
can make my decisions based on what I've read.
Yeah, and I think you know what's funny is because like a key component that a lot of people don't understand about AI is the difference between AI and like just your any other search engine is the fact that AI is literally like any other search engine, except there is no discernment as to what a reputable source is and what a non-reputable source is, right? So the same way that you can like type into Google and you can write like this is specifically what I'm looking for. Sorry, I can't say the word specifically properly, my bad. But you can look and you can type into Google and you can say this is what I'm looking for. And obviously, using a Google search engine, you're not going to use Wikipedia, or you're not going to use any non-reputable sources. But the thing about AI is that AI is going to find anything that pertains to the question that you ask them through different search engines, whether that be through Wikipedia, whether that be through some random mom blog, whether that be through just anything. And they take all of that information and they kind of spit out this answer that's a combination of absolutely anything that could be in the world. And keep in mind, even then, after that, it's still not exactly that specific amount of information. Instead, it's an interpretation of that information. So it's basically um, AI is combining all this information in the world they can find on whatever you asked it. And it's just spitting out this information based on what it's interpreted that information to mean. And so when you're just copy and pasting that information, you're basically just copy and pasting a huge smoothie of information that's been regurgitated and reinterpreted. Therefore, that's the reason why none of it can really be trusted.
And it's not absolute. And
Mhm,
the importance of educating yourself, is this whole process of realizing that when whatever your course is, whatever your passion is, whatever your gifts and talents are, the authenticity and the uniqueness of how you apply yourself is really what gives you the cutting edge in life. So if I don't know if you've ever had this experience to do a Google search, pull up 10 articles, and they're all the same article.
Mm.
I had that happen and I thought, didn't I just read this before? So, as you were saying, you may have people that are copying somebody else's article, somebody else's ideas, and just putting that out there. That's evident when somebody is trying to find an authentic author, speaker, idea. They can look and see, oh, you're just repeating what everybody else has said. So it's really important that whatever tools you use, it still goes back to what are you created to bring to the table? What is your unique gift? That's what gives you the cutting edge. And I understand we have to get through our when if we decide to go to formal education, that's really important. But you've done yourself a disservice if
Mhm.
you leave an institution and you've not cultivated who you really are. That's when you've wasted time in education,
Right.
when you don't cultivate who you are,
Mhm.
because you're the gift.
Mhm.
You're the gift the world is looking to see. You're the gift, whether you're a dancer, a performer, a writer, educator, business person, your unique gift is what's important to the world. That's
Mhm.
what needs to be cultivated.
And that's something I've had to remind myself whenever I'm like being tasked to write like these long papers, or I'm being tasked to like kind of like come up with something to write about whenever my professors tell me to write these long research papers. But then you have to understand that like if you are in higher education, like like she said, when you write these papers, you are given the opportunity to voice your opinion on something. You're given an opportunity to actually conduct research, to actually go out and find information. And a lot of the times you are ultimately taking your voice and then allowing research to back what you said and what you're trying to say in the world, right? And so a lot of the times, whenever I'm writing these long papers and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. Like, why do I have to write these long papers? I'm then reminding myself that I'm actually voicing my opinion, but I'm also voicing why my opinion is valid through the research of other people and through my own research. And so that's a really key component about going to some of these major institutions, because major institutions are actually trying to cultivate young minds. They actually want to be able to turn around and claim you as one of theirs based on the achievements that you've made and based on the things that you've done. You do an institution a great disservice when you don't leave the institution and go move on to bigger and better things, and you're able to then get your voice out there and do bigger things, because I believe that institutions want you to achieve bigger things and then ultimately use their name as a way to promote what you've done, right?
Right.
And so that's why I think, I mean, like at the end of the day, like whenever we're doing so I remember I think it was so funny. I actually did a project on relationships, and toxic relationship behaviors. And I was actually going through I actually used AI to kind of help me kind of get some points together, especially when talking about certain toxic behaviors, and doing some research based on like where these toxic behaviors come from and the cycles of that. And it's funny because the that project inspired me to do this podcast in a lot of ways, because a lot of the things that I talk about on this podcast are relationships and um how to treat yourself through dating and things like that. So really do understand and take advantage of the different opportunities that you have in higher education, because a lot of the times they can birth bigger and better things like this, I'd say.
Absolutely. And if you are not in a position, because I want to address that,
Hmm.
You may have a passion and you're not in a position, or at least you can't see yourself in the position of being a full time student and
Mm-hmm.
giving your education 100% of your time. Because I think when you're going to school, your job is to become educated. You can still begin the process of becoming and educating yourself. But the key is to see your possibilities and frame your world around who you actually are. People can live a lifetime never accomplishing what they were created to accomplish because they can't see that they can be and that they can become. You have the opportunity to come up with a strategy, and I can't say that enough, to be able to sit back and say, this is who I really am. So the important thing is to say, I see where I am, I see where I'm going, I can make those steps. So maybe you can't go to school full time, but you can come up with a strategy to do your coursework, to add courses, to develop and grow into what it is you're created to do. Most jobs require that you have an education. Choose the education for the job that you want, that you're created to do. People will say, well, there are no doors open for whatever it is you want to be. So why don't you settle for this over there? Well, I'm going to share with you the fact that if you're not created, you can serve and you can do things, but satisfaction comes in living your passion. It takes as much energy to do what you don't like as it does to figure out what you do like and strategize toward it.
I agree. And I also think that if you're in a position to where maybe you're too young to really think about what you want to do, or maybe you are at that point in your life where you feel like, because I've always been under the impression that telling 18-year-olds that, hey, this is about that time where you have to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. Here we're just gonna drop you off at this place, move in, live here, and go to school and figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. You have the rest of your life to figure this out, but right now, at the age of 18, you need to figure this out. So figure it out. That's a really hard thing to do, right? Even I thought that was a really hard thing to do. And to this day, even though I'm going to school for something, I still don't know exactly what I want to do. But I think in my experience, the best advice I can give you, if you are either in high school and you still don't know what you're going to do yet, or if you're kind of at that senior year point and you're still like, I really don't know what I'm going to do with my life, use the people around you, use the resources that you have, right? Obviously, when it comes to college, right, it's really hard to go to college without starting off with an ending point, because a lot of times you're going to college because you want to arrive at that end point, but some people don't know what their end point is, right? So what I did personally is I started off by um, working towards a degree that can be used in almost anything, right? A psychology degree can be used in almost any field, because at the end of the day, you're not really going to be able to do much with it until you get some sort of graduate, go into a graduate school, or get some sort of master's degree, right? But you don't have to be like me, okay? You can go around, look at, talk to different people that are in different fields. A lot of the times, you can really learn a lot about what you like and what you want to do by going to career fairs, because a lot of the times those people have already achieved probably what you want to do. And so it's talking to people, asking people what they do, even if you can't get into a career fair, asking people what they do for a living, asking people how they got there. A major, um, stepping stone for me was my freshman year. I, was in an intro to psych class, and one of our projects was to actually create a LinkedIn account and contact people who were in our career of choice. And so for my project, I was contacting different homicide detectives, and I was trying to, get an interview with different homicide detectives. And I ended up, actually getting in contact with this homicide detective who was doing exactly what I wanted to do, but did not go to college. Right? He did not go to college, but he was doing the exact job that I wanted to do, and he had achieved so much. Like, he even like got featured in a TV show, like in a true crime episode, for one of the cases that he helped solve. Right? Um, and so it's really funny because, it really shows you how, even when you connect yourself to people that might be doing the exact job that you want to do, everybody's career path is different. The way that they got there is completely different. And so that means that there's room for you to achieve exactly what you want to achieve in your way of doing it. Like, there's no one way to achieve any career path, right? There are many, many, many ways, and and you have the rest of your life to figure it out. I mean, the majority of people that are in my classes, when I go to college and I get into my classes, the majority of the people that are in my classes got kids and they're 35. Okay. They went back to school, or they are grandparents to someone, and they are sitting there in class with me, right? So you have so many choices and so much life to live and so much time to figure out what you want to do. But it starts now by understanding what your major goals are and what you want to do with your life. And you don't necessarily have to know what you want to do with your life at 18, the same way you don't have to know what you want to do with your life at 16, right? But yeah.
I was thinking when you were saying that the key is to cultivate who you are
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to change over life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have gone through several career changes and shifts, but who I am never changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you cultivate. Even when you go to school, even if you don't know what you want to become, one of the things I used to tell a gentleman that I raised, he would always say, well, that's not going to get me a job. It's like the important thing isn't that it's going to get you a job. It's going to open up your mind to possibilities. It's going to open up your mind to see potential. That's, I love museums. I go to museums. Why? Because it opens me up. I see what other people have done. I see what the possibilities are. And there's something inside of me that begins to resonate and to respond to what I'm experiencing. So be willing to explore, be willing to step out into the deep, try some things. That's what education is. You have the first 2 years of taking what they call general courses. Explore. Explore what it is that you really, really love. And maybe it's not a 4-year degree or a master's degree or a PhD, or you may be like I am. Someone asked me the other day, when are you ever going to stop going to school? And I simply told him never, because I love learning and I love being in a place to help others. And sometimes my learning isn't for me. Sometimes I can say to, there's a little 8-year-old girl. She's an amazing dancer in my dance and drama team. I know just enough dance to provoke her and tell her, you have the potential for greatness. You need to cultivate it, but you can do it. Don't settle for just being good in front of your friends. Be your richest and highest best. Achieve those goals. Do become your best person. And I think education does that.
And I think it's funny because it's one of the biggest cliches that I've ever heard, really. But when people say learn something new every day, that is so real. That, I mean, like, maybe you can't necessarily afford to be in higher education right now. That's okay. That's fine, right? But always engage your mind into something. Like I said, Google is free. I think one of my favorite things to do ever is to look up YouTube documentaries and just learn something new in the world, learn something that I've never heard of before. I remember one time I was like really, really bored and I looked up um I just typed into Google. I typed into YouTube documentaries, and I ended up learning. So I ended up learning a lot about human zoos, actually. P.T. Barnum and human
Mm,
zoos. So the idea of human beings actually being zoo exhibits, specifically people of color, Black people, right? And
hmm.
I learned a lot, but it's like little moments like that where it's just as easy as a Google search, typing into a search bar, right? But making sure that you're engaging your mind, opening your mind up to new things. No one wants to learn anything new or something outside of their comfort zone anymore. But opening your mind and learning new things is the key to success in life. Like, for example, one way that you can easily learn a lot about the world and what's around you, go camping. That's one of the easiest ways to learn anything about the world. Go camping because you learn how to build fires. You can learn how to pitch a tent. Those are good skills to have. Um, but there are just so many ways you can just engage your mind into something, even if you can't afford higher education, even if higher education really isn't a possibility for you. There are so many ways that you can just engage your mind into something and to learn something new and to have new experiences, because new experiences is learning. Because it's learning what you like and what you don't like, and you can maybe unlock a passion that you never knew that you had.
Or you can go camping and you can realize, wow, I like a nice bed and running water. That's what I
No,
really
no,
love. I'm
no,
so,
no.
so that might be what you learn, and that might become your inspiration
Or
to
you can be
say,
like me and work in the camping industry. The
and
camping
you,
industry is fun. It's
and
very fun. If you love children, the camping industry might be for you.
and it might inspire you to say, I wonder what course I need in order to become an architect or whatever it is, because I
Oh my
really don't like
goodness.
camping.
Oh my goodness.
I just have to put it out here because I'm another generation. I started off without running water. Camping is not the most exciting thing in the world for me. But from her perspective, I do take long walks. I do enjoy nature. I do those kind of things. So I know what she's saying. Experiment with your life. Enjoy your life. Try something you've never tried before. Um, and if you like, some people do the same thing with gardening. They learn different things. Enjoy yourself.
Alrighty, guys. So that was episode 4. I'm really happy that you were able to join us today. I definitely learned a lot today. And I hope that you learned a lot as well. I hope that you got something from this episode. Um, this is where we'll probably end it. Thank you for joining us today. I've been Natalia, and this has been my grandma Cheryl. And remember that I'm literally just a teen. I keep kicking the thing. I'm sorry. Remember, I'm literally just a teen, and this has been just another teen podcast. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night.